All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're diving into a connection that sounds kind of wild at first. A story that links the absolute cutting edge of AI with a trailblazing computer language from way back in the day. I know. It sounds like the setup for a weird joke, right? You've got this super advanced, futuristic language technology on one side and a nearly 50-year-old system on the other. But stick with me, because the answer to this question gets to the very heart of what artificial intelligence is all about.
You see, to really get this connection, you have to understand that AI has always had these two competing souls at its core. Two totally different philosophies battling it out over the best way to create intelligence.
And this is the big split right here. One path, the logic path, was all about perfect clarity. It wanted a world built on provable rules and absolute certainty. The other path, statistics, looked at the real world and said, no way, it's messy. This camp focused on patterns, on probability, and on figuring out what is simply most likely to be true.
So let's start with the champion of that first approach, the logic camp. Back in the 1970s, this whole idea was perfectly captured by a remarkable language called Prolog.
Now, the magic of Prolog wasn't about number crunching like we usually think of computers. Its real power was that you could encode knowledge, and then it would search through that knowledge to find answers. It wasn't just calculating, it was, in its own way, reasoning.
Here's the classic example of how this all worked. You'd feed the system some simple, undeniable statements. First, a specific fact. Socrates is a man. Got it. Then you'd give it a general rule. All men are mortal. With just those two little pieces, the system now knows a fundamental relationship.
So here's where it gets cool. When you ask it a question like, hey Prolog, is Socrates mortal? It doesn't just look for that exact sentence. Nope, it connects the dots. It sees the fact Socrates is a man, and it applies the rule all men are mortal to derive a brand new truth. It actually proves it.
But, and this is a huge but, this logical perfection was also its greatest weakness. The real world isn't clean. It's filled with exceptions and gray areas and missing information. And for Prolog, if it was missing just one tiny fact in its chain of logic, the whole system could just break. It was just too brittle.
And that brittleness is exactly what led to the rise of AI's other soul, the statistical approach. This is the philosophy that powers the LLMs we all see today, and it builds intelligence in a completely different way.
Researchers eventually just hit a wall. They realized that trying to model our messy, chaotic world with a set of perfect, rigid rules was a dead end. They needed systems that could handle uncertainty, ambiguity, and noise. Systems that moved away from seeking that absolute certainty.
And that is the fundamental change. These new systems, the ones that led to today's LLMs, don't try to prove something is 100% true. Instead, they look at massive amounts of data and they predict the most likely next word, the most probable answer.
And this brings us to the big reveal, the aha moment of this whole thing. Despite working in completely different ways, one with crisp logic, the other with fuzzy probability, they are both doing the same core job. They are derivation engines, designed to take existing knowledge and recombine it to create something new. Okay, so now that we know they're both these so-called derivation engines, let's put them right next to each other to really understand the differences and, the trade-offs.
So, the core difference in how they work is this. Prolog follows a single, strict, provable path through a tree of logic. An LLM, on the other hand, navigates this vast, cloudy space of probabilities to find the most likely path forward.
And this table lays out the trade-offs perfectly. With Prolog, knowledge is stored as explicit facts, which gives you total transparency. You can trace its logic step by step. But it's brittle. With LLMs, knowledge is stored in distributed embeddings, basically super complex math. This gives them amazing flexibility to handle messy data, but it also makes their reasoning a complete black box. They also give you the right answer, but it's nearly impossible to know exactly why.
So if one gives us rigor and the other gives us flexibility, the obvious next question is, can we have both? Can we get the best of both worlds? And the answer is leading to a really exciting new frontier in AI.
This emerging field is called neurosymbolic AI. The idea is pretty simple. Let each system do what it's best at. Let the LLMs handle the fuzzy, creative, pattern-matching stuff, and then use a logical symbolic engine to act as a fact-checker to enforce rules and ensure safety.
This is the ultimate goal. Just imagine an AI with the creative spark of an LLM to generate, say, a novel medical diagnosis. But that also has the logical rigor of a symbolic engine to check that diagnosis against all known biological facts. That's the powerful synthesis we're moving towards.
But this whole story, from rigid logic to these cloudy probabilities, it really raises a deeper, more philosophical question about what these systems are actually doing and what intelligence really is.
Whether it's Prolog chaining together facts or an LLM remixing its training data, both systems are fundamentally mirrors. They are incredibly sophisticated tools for rearranging and representing the human knowledge that already exists.
And this leaves us with the ultimate question. Can these incredible engines of derivation ever become engines of true discovery? Can an AI create a new law of physics or a new philosophical axiom, an idea that wasn't already embedded in the data we gave it? Whether AI will always be a mirror of us, or one day show us something entirely new, well, that is the question that will define its future.